Good day, everyone. I'm back again to discuss with you this lecture series on human rights based education for criminology students and law enforcers. We are now in part 2 entitled Human Rights Based Policing. What is human rights based policing? According to the Philippine National Police, human rights based policing is the comprehensive, systematic, and institutional first adherence to national or domestic laws on human rights. Next, compliance with international human rights principles, standards, and practices, as well as treaties, conventions, and protocols related to law enforcement or police functions. So basically, human rights based policing is one, adherence to national laws, and second, to international laws. So we can only say that this type of policing is human rights based if the police has incorporated these laws, national and international, about human rights in the police functions, police goals, police operations. So we can say it is human rights based policing if they have done it to adhere to national laws and to comply with international laws. In human rights based policing, there are two parties, the claim holders and the duty bearers. So the claim holders are the citizens, you and me, while the duty bearers, those who have the duty to respect our rights, are the police officers and other law enforcers, even armed forces. And we as citizens, we have the right to claim our rights. Next, what are the characteristics of the human rights based policing? Number one, it is characterized by strict observance of police policies and operational procedures. We can only say that our law enforcement agency is human rights based if it is strict in terms of observing its own policies and operational procedures. If it is not strict in observing the procedures, then we cannot say that it is human rights based policing. Next, adherence to national, domestic, and international laws. So we can only say that it is human rights based policing, as I said earlier, if the police and other law enforcement agencies have incorporated in their operational manuals, in their practice, in their functions, in their rules and regulations, internal rules and regulations, the laws on human rights. Professional competence and courteous service. So police officers or law enforcers must be expert in their job so that we can say they are competent, and they must be respectful. They must conduct a respectful or courteous service towards the citizens. It's not that they will act as masters, but as servants of the people. Law enforcers are not masters. They are not the lords of the people. Only the Lord Jesus Christ, of course, is the Lord of the people. But police officers are servants of the citizens. Take note of that. The next, respect for the rule of law. It must be the rule of law, not of men. We are a government of laws, not of men. Men should not rule our government. Men should not rule our society, their own opinions, their own desires. They should rule our society. No. It should be the law. What is the law? That is in line with our constitution. And it is human rights based policing if the police considers civilians as supreme over military and the police forces. We have a provision for this in our Philippine Constitution, that the civilian populace is supreme over military. The military, the police, their job is to protect the people, not to terrorize the people, not to be the lords of the people. And lastly, it is human rights based policing if the police is pro democracy and pro citizens. So when the police is is observing participatory interaction with the people, decision making with the people. They let people to give their opinions to the police, suggestions. So that's pro-democracy and pro-citizens, not pro-criminals. So that's the characteristics of the human rights-based policing. Next is, what are the principles of human rights? We have the acronym PANTHER. PANTHER stands for participation, accountability, non-discrimination, transparency, human dignity, empowerment, and rule of law. First, participation. Participation, it is the one principle of human rights-based policing when the police allows the citizens to participate in planning. That is why we have consultants in the Philippine National Police. We have civilians, prominent members of the community that are part of decision making body in the police officers, in police stations, I mean. So that's participation of the civilian populace in law enforcement. That's important. Next, accountability. So police officers should be held or can be held accountable or answerable to violate any violations, and people have the right to seek redress against police officers. So if the people is not afraid to uphold their human rights against police officers, against law enforcers, then we can say that that is really human rights based policing. Next, the principle of non-discrimination. Police officers, law enforcers must not discriminate people based on financial capacity, based on social class, based on appearance, based on physical appearance, based on relationship, whether friend or not. So there should be no discrimination. Must provide service to all. Next, transparency. The police is employs human rights based policing if it is transparent. So one principle of human rights is transparency. So when the police allows the public to have access to some plans, documents, data, so that's one principle of human rights, data of the police or data of crimes, except for confidential matters. Of course, there's exception to this. Secret, top secret information should not be accessible to the public because they could compromise the safety and security of the police and of course the whole society. Next, human dignity. So it's a principle that the PNP or the police officers value the inherent and immutable dignity of every person at all times. That people should be treated as human beings, not as animals. Even criminals, even suspects, even the accused, they have been arrested, they should not be treated like animals, just to be thrown to a pig pen. But they should be treated as human beings, with courtesy, with respect, as human beings. Next principle is empowerment. The police should empower the public, should acknowledge that the public has capability to suggest changes, to suggest good things to the police, to improve the police. That's empowerment. And lastly, rule of law. So we have repeatedly mentioned this, that in human rights based policing, one principle is rule of law. Our government is not a rule of men, but a rule of, or the government, not a government of men, but a government of laws. Men should not rule over laws. No person, whether congressman, governor, or president, is above the law. All of them must respect the law and the judgment of our courts. Next, we have the 10 basic human rights standards for law enforcement. What are these human rights standards? First, equal protection, because everyone is entitled to equal protection of the law. We must, we repeatedly mention this. There should be no discrimination based on any other grounds, except for valid grounds, of course. There are exceptions to the rule. Because equality in our constitution doesn't mean uniformity in treatment, but uniformity within the class of that person. Next, treat all victims of crime with compassion. So that's respectful treatment, compassion and respect. So for example, if there is a rape victim, so we should not exacerbate or make the situation worse by blaming the victim. That blaming the victim, for example, saying that you were raped because it was your fault that you were raped. You were wearing this dress, blah blah blah. So just treat the victims with compassion and respect. Next, do not use force except when strictly necessary. If it can be done through words, verbal commands, and directives towards the suspect so that he will obey you, so do it. Do not use force. So there should be maximum tolerance on the part of law enforcers not to use force, maximum tolerance unless necessary. Next, number 4, policing non-violent assemblies. So avoid using force when policing unlawful or non-violent assemblies. For example, if there is an illegal rally without permit, police officers, when they conduct crowd control management, they do not bring with them their firearms. If there are protests on the streets, police officers respond not with firearms. They do not bring firearms. No, for civil disturbance team of the police officers, they do not bring firearms. They just use baton or truncheon or the batuta in Filipino. Next, lethal force should not be used except when strictly unavoidable in order to protect your life or the lives of others. Always remember that your firearm in the future, if you become law enforcers, or for law enforcers, your firearm, the purpose of that is not for offense but for defense, to protect your life and the lives of others. If there is no recourse anymore, as a last resort, you can use your firearm, but it should not be the number one option. 6, arrest no person unless there are no legal grounds. So that's arresting persons on legal grounds only. So you cannot arrest a person without any cause or reason. Just because you don't like his face, you think that he is ugly, then you arrest him. So that's discrimination. Or you think that this person is, for example, has this color of the skin black, for example, and just because of that you arrest him. That's an unjustifiable reason. You cannot arrest a person just because he or she is black or white or yellow. You cannot do that. Next, ensure all detainees have access promptly after arrest to their lawyers or to their family members. So even detainees, even suspects, they have their rights. They have their rights. It's not because that a suspect has killed a person, even if you have seen him killing the person. After arrest, that person still has the right to remain silent, right to counsel, and other rights. Next, all detainees must be treated humanly. I said earlier, regardless of the status of a person, that person has to be treated like a human being with dignity and respect, not as an animal. Next, do not carry out or order or cover up extrajudicial executions or disappearances. You must refuse orders that are illegal. We must, you cannot just say yes to everything that your superiors will say to you, even though the orders is illegal to kill a person without cause. So that's, you have the right to refuse. Next, report all breaches of these basic standards. So as a police officer, if you have seen violations in the station, you can report that properly. You have the internal affairs service in the PNP, for example, for that. So that's the part 2 of our lecture series for the human rights based education for law enforcers and criminology students. Thank you very much for listening, and we will proceed to part 3.